Welcome. I never thought my very first video that I would ever do for YouTube would be something like this, would be having to explain probably the most tragic thing that's ever happened to me in my life. But I realized when I was going through this journey that I'm not the only one that this is happening to. There are thousands and thousands of other parents who are going through the same thing. And I really wanted to tell my story so that maybe somebody else can learn from it and not make the same mistakes that I did. So this is the story about how my ex-husband abducted my 6-year-old son. I met my ex-husband when we were like 15 or 16, and we met online through a game, actually. And what was funny about it was it's a game that was like international. People from all over the world played. And when we started chatting, we actually realized that we were in the same city, which was pretty odd. At that time, I was actually staying at my uncle's. It wasn't like where I was from. I was just there for the summer because my dad was there for work, and that's where we were staying. I was just being a kid, playing games online, whatever. We didn't actually meet. We talked for 8 years before we actually met face-to-face. By the time we met face-to-face, I was 21, 22, 23, something like that. And I already had 2 kids. I had just gotten out of a really peculiar relationship. My ex at that time, I had to press charges on him because I found out that he was hitting my son, my 13-month-old son, while I was at work. And so I had to kick him out. I had to move out of my apartment, back in with my mom, press charges on him. It was a huge mess, and it was very, very emotional. And so I was already in this really fragile place. And like I said, we'd been talking for 8 years, and I felt like I knew everything about him. I knew about his family, I knew about his friends, I knew about his job, everything. When he came out January of that year, and it was great. I mean, it was one of those, when you're in the moment, you feel like love at first sight, I guess you could say. And he was just this breath of fresh air that came into my life when I needed it the most, to be honest. Because we had been pretty close over those years, and he knew the struggles that I was going through. I had 2 very little children, and he was single. He lived with his parents because of his job, that he traveled a lot. And he said, hey, let me help you get into an apartment. Now, keep in mind that my relationship with my mother is very volatile. Like, she is so abusive towards me. My whole life she has been. And so having to stay with her was probably one of the hardest things at the time that I was doing. And it wasn't good for my kids for me to be in that mess. And I was just like coming off of maternity leave because I'd actually just had like my 2nd child. And so I thought, oh, that would be great. Are you sure? Like, I'll pay you back. He's like, no, it's fine. He's like, I'm going to help you get into a place, like with the down payment, the deposit, all of that. And then he helped me replace my car because my car had broken down. And so I didn't have a car. So he paid cash for like, just not anything fancy. It was just like a little like Hyundai, like $3,000, whatever. I'm so appreciative though. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I was through the moon. I mean, I felt bad because at the same time, like, we were just dating. Like, we had just started dating. Yeah, we'd been friends for 8 years, but like, I felt like that was a lot of pressure on the relationship. So I was very, I guess, hesitant, you could say. But at the same time, like, I knew I had to take care of my kids. And, it wasn't just some guy I met yesterday. So for some stupid reason, I went along with this, which looking back, I really wish I shouldn't have. Well, the plan was he was just going to help me get into a place. Like, that was it. He ended up moving in, which I look back and I never remember a conversation with him where we sat and we discussed him actually moving in with me. He just stayed. And then he was lying to his parents about it, saying that he was just visiting. And it was about 2 or 3 months before he actually told them, like, no, like, I'm living with her now. So that was really stressful. So, like, right out the gate, his parents don't like me. They think that I'm using him for his money and yada, yada, yada. Now, at the time, I had no idea how much he made. I didn't know he had a savings account. I knew nothing about him. I just knew he made really good money. Not like how much he made. I just knew that he made decent money and he had, like, no bills. And we were young. So that's all I knew. So time goes on. We actually, that September, got engaged. And in that time, he was spending every dime out of his savings account. I was not in control of this. This was not me going around spending anything. Like, I was already a little put off with myself over letting him help me with the apartment and the car and all of this other stuff. Well, I only had that car for a few months when he decided to trade it in and buy me a brand new Toyota Highlander limited edition, 2008. What do you say to, like, I remember sitting at the car dealership and going, are you sure? Like, you sure you want to do this? Because this is a lot of money. He's like, no, it's fine. He put, like, a big chunk down, and that was that. I thought, okay. Well, for the new apartment, he was like, oh, we need furniture. And so we went out and bought brand new furniture. He was taking me out to eat all the time. He took me on a long-distance trip with my kids to go to the zoo and stuff for my birthday, the same month that we got engaged. Actually, I think it was, we got engaged, and then we went on the trip, or vice versa. It was, like, right in that same, like, 2-week span. And I just remember thinking, like, I wasn't asking for anything, and he was voluntarily doing all this stuff. And I'm not going to lie, it felt amazing. And I really wish, you always look back and you wish I wouldn't have done that. I wish I wouldn't have done that. We went in engagement ring shopping, and I showed him, like, the ring that I wanted, which was just, like, a little princess cut, nothing fancy. And he ended up seeing the case, like, this big honkin' diamond. Was like, no, you need this. And I was like, not really. Like, I'm good with this small one. I'll be fine. He's like, no, you really need this. It was a $10,000 freaking wedding ring. I didn't need it, but he insisted that I have it. He insisted on buying me elaborate gifts and taking me places, like, expensive places. And I kept telling him, like, you don't have to do this. Like, I love you for you. Well, in the midst of all of this, I end up getting a message from an ex-girlfriend of his on Facebook. Now, I actually remember when they dated because we were friends, and it did not end well between them. And, of course, two sides to every story. According to him, like, she cheated on him, a whole bunch of stuff, and she wasn't, like, all there. So when she emails me, I'm kind of, like, put off because I'm like, I remember you. I remember your crazy antics when you were with him. Like, I don't believe anything you say. But she ended up, like, messaging me stuff about me and his relationship that the only way she could have known is if he told her. He was telling her that it was my idea to get the car, that it was my idea to get the furniture, that I begged for the expensive engagement ring, and that he wanted to leave me because he thought I was a gold digger. Like, are you freaking kidding me? And I was pissed. I was so pissed because I didn't ask for anything. I didn't want any of it. Like, I drew the line when he was like, oh, I'll help you pay for the apartment. Like, I'll help you get a car. Like, that was great. And I fully intended on paying him back. I never planned on him moving in with me. I never planned on any of this stuff. So to look at these messages and go, the only way she would have known about the Highlander or my ring or the necklace you bought me or anything like that was if you were still talking to her, which he was lying to me about. So then I was stopping and thinking about, like, every time I was in the room and he was on his phone, he'd, like, flip his phone. And a whole bunch of stuff. Well, when he finally made our relationship public on social media, I got another message from another girl who was like, wow, he just moved in with you? It's like, yeah. She goes, yeah, we've been together for, like, however many months. It was a while. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? She goes, yeah, he's been, like, texting me every day, promising me that we're going to be together and he's going to come out and see me and all this other stuff. And we actually did break up for like a couple weeks. And for some stupid reason, I forgave him. We got back together. Everything was golden, except now his parents hate me. His parents freaking despise me at this point. They think I'm white trash. They think that I just spent all his money and yada, yada, yada. Bad stuff. Whatever. So I point out to him that, like, this is not a healthy relationship at all. And I say, you know what? I'm actually thinking about moving and, like, saving up and, like, moving. At the time, I actually wanted to move to the East Coast. And he was very like, what? No, you can't move. You can't leave me. Like, and I don't want to move with you. So then all of a sudden, I start getting, like, messages from him where he's, like, looking to buy a house. And he sends me this house. He's like, just please come look at this house. Like, it's a dream house. You'll love it. Like, I'm going to make this right with us. I want a family with you. Like, I want to do this with you. Like, I'm 1,000% in. I know I screwed up in the past, but, like, please forgive me. Let's do this. Against my better judgment, I said, okay. So we went and we started looking at houses. And we find this house, and I'm like, oh, no, this is pretty. And he's like, well, I really want it. Okay, put an offer on it, I guess. He's like, no, I want it with you. And I was like, okay, I guess. Like, I don't know. Like, I look back, and yeah, I was so excited, but it wasn't things that I was asking for, like, at all. So I don't know how and why he just kept doing all this stuff. So we buy the house. We close March of 2000, I want to say 9. Yeah, 2009. And we actually closed on my youngest son's first birthday. And we move in. We decide that we were originally planning, like, this huge wedding. But now at this point, like, we're poor. Like, we're really poor. And he makes good money. But he drained his savings. He put a bunch of money down on the house. I found out he, like, took a loan to help with the down payment on the house, which I was unaware of. And so by the time we're, like, actually serious, you know, and we get this house together, and he finally is like, hey, do you want to do the finances? I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense if we're, you know, going to be living in this house together that we're apparently buying. Now, my name was not on the house. It was his name only. Why? I don't know. I don't know, guys. So I end up signing the paperwork for him, though, because he was away at sea. So his job at the time, he was gone for months at a time. And every summer, he was gone from about April to, like, November. It was like April, May to, like, November. And he was off in Alaska for the entire summer. He'd come home for maybe 2 or 3 weeks every summer. So he, by the time, like, you know, we're closing on this house, he was away, like, doing another job to prepare for this, like, other Alaskan job, I guess. So I signed the paperwork. Like, we're really excited. We move in. We got married that December of 2009, and we got pregnant pretty much right away. We had my son, Caleb, and he was born September of 2010. Now, mind you, I'm kind of not happy, and I don't think I ever really was truly happy, but it got worse, like, over the years, because he was away at work, and when he would come home, like, I hadn't seen him in months, but he was never really home. Like, he was always mentally checked out, and it was depressing, and it was hard, because it's like when you're trying to be close to your husband, and you're trying to have a healthy marriage, but that person doesn't want anything to do, like, with working on anything. It makes it difficult. And, like, he would lie to me all the time about stuff. He would, like, get speeding tickets and go behind my back and pay them and, like, write a check and not tell me. So then the bank account would bounce and we'd, like, be in the negative, and we'd have to borrow money from, like, a family member or something. And meanwhile, he's telling everybody that I'm out spending money, and that's why we're broke. I'm like, dude, you've racked up so many credit cards and spent your entire savings. That's why we're broke. It's not because of me. What the crap? So I'm getting the blame from this. It got to the point finally where I was like, I have to leave. Like, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go. Now, I want to say that, like, through this whole thing, yes, he was very codependent. He, like, couldn't make his own decisions. And when he did, like, he never took responsibility for them. he didn't really have like a healthy relationship with his family. They're not the I love you type. They don't hug, they don't kiss, like they don't do anything that like families do. Like it's weird. I don't get it. And so he had a lot of emotional issues. And so now fast forward, like when I decided to leave, I actually left like April of, I want to say like 2015 is when I left. And I went and I got my own apartment. Now, that actually it might have been 2014. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is I moved out and I was on my own and I had my own apartment. And that a couple months later, he got accepted into a school 6 hours away that would up his license for work. And he was very close to my kids. Like, to them, he was their dad. They didn't know anything different. Their other dads had bailed. Like, they didn't come around, and he was all they knew. And I didn't want my kids to have to be separated from him for like a year while he did school. So for some reason, I agreed to move with him. And we weren't together at all. Like, we were separated. We weren't divorced, but we were separated. And I agreed to move. So December of that year, I'm going to say it was 2014, we move out. And my dad actually was really nice and let us stay with him. And so I get a job over there. I get my kids in school. Like, everything's good. We stay with my dad for a couple months just to kind of like get on our feet. And I go get my own apartment again. And everything's hunky-dory. He gets an apartment or a house with a friend that he worked with. Everything's great. About 2 months into that, his roommate kicks him out because he's lying. He's found out he wasn't paying him rent. He was paying his roommate 0 rent. So he was homeless, essentially. And I was like, I guess you can come stay with me. I mean, what was I supposed to do at this point? Like, I should have said, go stay with your family, but I'm an idiot. So I let him come stay with me. And after that, we moved to another city that was closer to his parents because at that point we're like an hour and a half away. And the drive was like for his school and stuff. It was killing us. And so I ended up finding a really nice apartment like an hour and a half away, moved there. And I was only there for I think like 9 months when I realized I hate it here. We were in like the Seattle area and I'm a small town girl and this was killing me, guys. Like this was killing my soul. So I said, I'm moving home. I'm moving back to Idaho. You're on your own. Move in with your family. Like, I'm done. I'm done babysitting you. I'm done holding your hand through everything. Like, you know, and at this point, we'd been separated for so long that we weren't together. And I kind of want to start dating again. Like, I wanted to see what was out there, I guess. So I told him, I was like, we need to set a date for the divorce and everything, which was kind of messy because my kids had insurance through his work. So the second we get divorced, my kids lose health insurance, which was the only reason we even held on to the marriage as long as we even did. So I moved to Idaho, and we actually are co-parenting pretty decent. Like, he's still over there, and we're meeting in the middle, like, every so often, and he's taking all 3 boys, and for, like, you know, a couple weeks or whatever, and then I go, you know, meet in the middle and pick him up. We did that great for a couple years, actually. Then I start dating my now husband, and that's when you know what hit the fan. He became very hostile towards me. He got very angry. He was very condescending to me all the time. He just stopped being nice, like, altogether. And I thought, okay, you know, it's probably hard on him. Like, I left him, whatever. Then I find out he has a girlfriend. Why does it matter? If you have a girlfriend and I have a boyfriend, what does it matter? So we had planned to file divorce like on a certain date when my health insurance for my new job kicked in. He filed like 4 months early and just had me served. Didn't talk to me about it or anything, which, okay, it's divorce. Like, I get it, right? But if you have an agreement with somebody because like of your kids, because it affects your kids, like, don't go behind their back and do it. Like, have a conversation with me and be like, look, I think it'd be better if we did it now. I'd have been like, yeah, okay, I get it. Sure. And I would have found something else insurance-wise for my kids. So we filed for divorce, and it finally got finalized September of 2017. And that's when he was supposed to start paying child support. And he didn't. He's paid twice. So now December, a few months later, I had gotten this beautiful apartment. It was brand new. I had just gotten remarried. And we had only been in the house like 2 months when our apartment flooded. And this is kind of where everything just starts to take a turn. So Christmas of 2017, the apartment above us had a frozen pipe and it burst and nobody was home. So it like flooded their apartment and then came crashing down into our apartment at about 2 o'clock on Christmas. So we're all sitting around, we're playing card games, and all of a sudden we have water pouring from our ceiling, like pouring. And I'll actually insert the footage or the clips. I have pictures. And it's a mess, guys. It was bad. We call our renter's insurance. They put us in the Hampton Hotel, and we're there for about a week. And we find out that the apartment is deemed unlivable. There's too much work that needs to be done. They said it's going to take like 6 to 9 months to fix because they had to fix both units. And there was just too much. And so they released us from our lease. And meanwhile, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do because so many of our things were damaged. Like pretty much all of our clothes, bedding, like furniture was gone. It was a disaster. We didn't know what we had left. Movers came. They were hired from the apartments and they moved everything of ours into a storage unit. And it was a mess. And they didn't have another apartment for us. They were full. So they released us from our lease. Meanwhile, we're trying to say, okay, we got to get another place. Well, at the time, we're also living out of a hotel, which is expensive because even though renter's insurance is at the time paying for like the actual hotel, they're not paying for having to go out to eat because we don't have a way to cook or having to replace clothes because I had a pair of pajamas that I was in and that was it. And I had a job. I needed clothes for work. So I had to go buy like some clothes, and our kids needed clothes because my husband has a daughter. So we had 4 kids that we had to buy clothes for and food. And and we had to take a week off of work because of all of this. And we were just getting drained. And now meanwhile, the last couple of years, my son had a really bad health condition. He couldn't control his bowels, and they never actually diagnosed, like they couldn't figure out what it was. The only thing we could come up with is it was psychological because his dad was never around. And when his dad was around, it was like chaos with him. So my son was just not doing good in the hotel. He cried a lot. I was crying. He kept having accidents, which, put him in even worse. And we're in a hotel. We don't have a way to do laundry. Not like in the middle of the night when he has an accident, I can just throw everything in the wash. And, we have 1 car, so we're like going back and forth from work and the hotel and, 4 kids that were trying to get to different schools, and it was a disaster. And my son was suffering. He was suffering because of this. And I remember I sat down and I actually asked all 3 of my kids. I said, I know this situation isn't ideal. I'm going to give you the option. You can either stay with me and we'll figure this out. Well, we're trying to get a new place and we'll figure it out. Or you can go live with my ex. And my 2 older boys did not want to do that. They're like, no, we want to stay. Like, we're not going. But Caleb really was like, I want to go because this is stressful. Like, he was 6 and he was crying all the time. So I called my ex and I said, I want to talk this over with you. And I explained, he knew that the house had flooded. He knew everything. And I said, I think it might be best if Caleb finished out 1st grade at your place. Because he lived with his parents. And so he was only gone 2 weeks a month now. He had changed his schedule. So he was home 2 weeks, gone 2 weeks, home 2 weeks, gone 2 weeks. And I said, I know because you live with your parents that this might be a little better situation, a lot more consistency with him. And he said, let me talk to my parents, I'll call you back. So he calls me back and he says, yeah, my parents are willing to help. And I said, okay. I said, it's just till June. He said, yeah, I know. He says, my parents don't want, to help me raise our kid, long term anyways. And I said multiple times, I was like, this is just until June, because I had, our papers say 50-50 custody, but it actually says that the child will live with me, the mom, a majority of the time and go to school. So because we lived 6 hours away, so technically we had 50-50, but it was worded that he lived with me. So I said, he came and he picked him up 2 days later. I said, June, okay? repeated it. I was like, I'm getting him back in June. He goes, I know. He goes, don't worry. Like, we'll figure this out. And everything was hunky-dory. And the first month was the hardest. Like, I actually, when the night he left, I was inconsolable. I was sitting in the chair at the hotel, wondering what the hell did I just do? I handed my son over. And so, over the next couple weeks, I was calling all the time to talk to my son, and I missed him so much. And I was so sorry. I said, I hope you know I love you, and this was the hardest thing I had to do, but I know it's the best thing for you. And I would cry because hearing his voice, and that was the longest I'd ever gone without seeing him. And so my ex was gone, away from work, and so I was having to go through his mom to talk to my son. And she actually said to me, because we were supposed to talk, we had a schedule every Sunday, and then whenever I called, but it was scheduled every Sunday no matter what, like, I'd get to talk to him. And I got to talk to him twice on that schedule before she said, Jocelyn, it's not good for him to talk to you right now, because every time he gets off the phone with you, he cries, and then he has an accident. So she told me I wasn't allowed to talk to my son. And I was like, who are you to make that decision? And we got in a huge fight. And I was devastated. And so we're in temporary housing. It's not like I can just go pick my son back up, because we're still not like 100% situated at this point. So I'm like fighting and I'm trying to talk to my son, and they're being very evasive with me. And then come April, I was finally in a position that like I could make the trip over to go see him. And on April 1st of 2018, I had a conversation with my ex-husband over the phone, and I said, we were verifying because I was going to come out. And April 1st, he was like, yeah, like, I'll text you like a good time. I said, okay. Well, I was supposed to leave like April 3rd, and I hadn't heard anything. So come April 2nd, I sent him a text, and I says, what time are we meeting tomorrow? I said, I can meet anytime. I have tomorrow morning off, and I took less shifts, and I have vacation this week to spend time with him. Nothing. I hear nothing from him. So I finally say, I hope you're not keeping my son from me. Nothing. He then proceeds to say, hours later, Caleb will be staying here this week. He has 2 necessary appointments that are not able to be rescheduled. It concerns the issues of regressive behaviors. And my trip was canceled. Wouldn't let me see him, wouldn't let me get him. That was the first time. It just goes on and on and on every single freaking month. So now come June, when I'm supposed to get him, when his school is supposed to be over and I'm supposed to get him, he's being evasive. And I finally get him to agree to come out for July 4th with my son. Because we had actually like just gotten into housing like that April. Like an actual like replacement, permanent replacement. And I was like, you need to give me back my son. You need to give me back my son. So I'm under the impression that when they're coming for this visit for July 4th, I'm getting my son back. It was not the case. He took him. And I look back and I think, I should have just kept him. But that wasn't fair to my son. I didn't want to do that to my son. And people keep saying, why didn't you drive over and just get him? Like, because after everything that my son just went through, the last thing I want to do is traumatize him, because I'm going and I'm scooping him away in the middle of the night or pulling him from school to drive him 6 hours back to where he's supposed to be. He doesn't know what's going on. At the time, he was 6 years old. He had no idea what's going on. None. I wasn't going to do that to him. So that's the last time I physically saw my son, was when they left July 5th of 2018. Every trip I scheduled to go over to spend time with him, to try and get him back from him, he cancels on me, saying, we're going to be out of town, or he has appointments, or whatever. And the police did nothing. They said because the parenting plan was so loosely worded that there was nothing they could do. They can't prove that he's not on his 50% time, because there was no dates on the parenting plan. There's no dates that say from this date and this date you get him, and that. It wasn't like that. It was just literally like Jocelyn gets him a majority of the time. That's what it says. So people, don't do that. If you get a parenting plan, oh my Lord, have it detailed. Have it detailed. And if you make a verbal agreement with your ex for like a temporary situation like I did, get it in writing. Get witnesses. So now he's trying to take me to court saying that I've abandoned my child, that I'm emotionally unstable because I left him. And he's trying to say like I have all these mental conditions. I'm like, the only condition I have is the fact that you won't let me see my son. The fact that it has been over 400 days since I've seen and held my child. So don't tell me that I have some emotional issue. You're my emotional issue. Oh, this has been a freaking nightmare. So I know that I had like put everything on my GoFundMe, like the situation, but there's not enough time to sit and like go through all of this. I mean, these are all the papers and screenshots and emails that I have, like right here. Like, it's ridiculous. Email after email. You can't have him. You can't see him. We're busy. This doesn't work for us. You know, we would call, he wouldn't answer. We would FaceTime, he wouldn't answer. I've sent demand letters saying, you know, here's the court orders, like, you need to follow these, you're not following these, and he doesn't follow them. So, I hope that somebody learns from this, because don't do what I did. Do not do what I did. Don't just believe your ex. Don't think that because you have a verbal agreement that they're going to hold up their end. I am living freaking proof of that. I would give anything in the world to be able to go back and change it, but I can't. So all I have left is fighting. And I never thought that I would have to go through this. I never thought that this would be me. And here I am. So, please, I really, really hope that somebody learns from this and doesn't make the same mistake I did. Thanks for watching.